Isaac Newton was born on December 25, 1642, at Woolsthorpe Manor, in Woolsthorpe by Colsterworth, Lincolnshire, England. His father, also named Isaac Newton, was a prosperous farmer. Sadly, 3 months before young Isaac was born, he died. According to young Isaac's mother, Hannah Askew, he was born prematurely and he could have fitted inside a quart mug. When young Isaac was 3, his mother left him in the care of his maternal grandparents, James and Marjorie Askew, and went to marry and live with Reverend Barnabas Smith in North Witham. The young Isaac disliked Reverend Smith and his mother for marrying the Reverend so much that reportedly she threatened to burn them and their house. After the Reverend died, Isaac's mother returned with her 3 other children, Mary, Benjamin, and Hannah. Isaac was then 10 years old. From the ages of 12 through 17, Isaac was educated at the King's School, Grantham, a grammar and voluntary controlled school. However, on October 1659, his mother attempted to make him a farmer, which he hated. Then Henry Stokes, master at the King's School, persuaded Isaac's mother to send him back to school to complete his education. This he did at the age of 18, and motivated partly by a schoolyard bully, he achieved an admirable final report. In June 1661, he was admitted to Trinity College, Cambridge, as a sizar, a sort of work-study role. At that time, the college's teachings were based on those of Aristotle, whom Newton supplemented with modern philosophers such as Descartes and astronomers such as Copernicus, Galileo, and Kepler. In 1665, he discovered the generalized binomial theorem and began to develop a mathematical theory that later became infinitesimal calculus. During the Great Plague, Newton came back home in Woolsthorpe. Over the subsequent 2 years, he developed his theories on calculus, optics, and the law of gravitation. It is supposed that it was at Woolsthorpe in the summer of 1666 that Newton's thoughts were directed to the subject of gravity. In one version of the story, Newton saw the apple falling towards the ground. In another and more famous version of the story, the apple is supposed to have fallen on Newton's head. This version appears to be invented by Isaac Disraeli. Voltaire is the authority for the former version of the story. Newton formulated the 3 laws of motion. First, every object in a state of uniform motion tends to remain in that state of motion unless an external force is applied to it. Second, the relationship between an object's mass m, its acceleration a, and applied force F is F equals ma. Acceleration and force are vectors. In this law, the direction of the force vector is the same as the direction of the acceleration vector. Third, for every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. In January 1665, Newton took the degree of Bachelor of Science. Newton was elected a Fellow of his college on October 1, 1667. In March 1668, he took his Master of Arts degree. During the years 1666 to 1669, Newton's studies were very diverse. He conducted studies on optics and performed chemical experiments. He employed part of his time on the theory of fluxions and other branches of pure mathematics. He also wrote a paper in 1669 entitled Analisu per equationes numero terminorum infinita. Newton was elected Location Professor on October 29, 1670. He lectured at least once a week in term time on some portion of geometry, arithmetic, astronomy, geography, optics, statics, or some other mathematical subject. According to Alfred Rupert Hall, the first reflecting telescope was built by Newton in 1668. On December 21, 1671, he was proposed as a candidate for admission to the Royal Society, and on January 11, 1672, he was elected a Fellow of the Society. Newton's philosophical discovery was the realization that white light is composed of a spectrum of colors. He realized that objects are colored only because they absorb some of these colors more than others. However, a number of people, including the eminent English physicist Robert Hooke, refused to believe the existence of the spectrum. In January 1684, Sir Christopher Wren, Halley, and Hooke were led to discuss the law of gravity, and although probably they all agreed in truth of the law of the inverse square, yet this truth was not looked upon as established. It appears that Hooke professed to have a solution of the problem of the path of a body moving around a center of force attracting at the inverse square of the distance, but failed to show the calculations. Halley went to Cambridge to ask Newton about the subject. Newton said that he had made calculations about it. After reproducing the calculation, he sent it to Halley. Later, his treatise was published under the title Philosophiae Naturalis Principia Mathematica. In the 1690s, Newton wrote a number of religious tracts dealing with the literal interpretation of the Bible. He also devoted a great time to alchemy. He became a member of the Parliament of England for Cambridge University. Newton took up the post of Warden of the Royal Mint in 1696, and for 30 years he became known as the Master of the Mint. In 1703, Newton was made President of the Royal Society and an Associate of the French Académie des Sciences. He was knighted by Queen Anne in April 1705 in Trinity College. Newton died in his sleep in London on March 20, 1727, and was buried in Westminster Abbey.